This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart, and now we'll talk about a grand experiment in media and free speech. In the early 1970s, when Time Warner made a deal to put cable TV infrastructure in, the city required that some channels be allocated for public access. A new documentary called Public Access traces the history of Manhattan cable television, one such channel, which became an eclectic collage of homegrown content. This includes niche call-in shows, countercultural music coverage, personal soapboxes, and community interviews, as well as your experiences with the modern internet might suggest, an open forum like the one we've invited, an open forum that invited a lot of pornography. Free speech advocates found themselves in a mix with some characters, and there's more connective tissue than that between public access TV's open platform and today's social media content creators. So let's get into it with the documentary's director, David Shadrock-Smith. David, welcome to All of It.
Thank you.
I got mixed up in the intro there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know the story.
Why were there public access requirements built into the implementation of New York City's cable television infrastructure?
Let me take you back to a great time in the world. It really kind of grew out of, civil rights movement and anti-Vietnam War protests and the whole kind of sense of like, maybe the media isn't telling us the whole story and there's a lot more out there and maybe we need to be more inclusive. And there were a group of pretty leftist thinkers that came out of the alternative media center in New York, and they were activists, and they said, why don't we treat media like a civil right? And everyone should have access, should be able to tell their story. That's what will make our democracy better. So they went and somehow they advocated for channels on this new thing called cable to be available to anybody on a first come, first serve basis, totally free. And I think that was the very idealistic beginnings. And from there, the story unfolds.
How did the new technologies at the time make it possible for this to become a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I love the parallels, not only to today, but sort of every time a new technology comes online and it opens up spaces and people rush in. And in that time, it was really two technologies. It was coaxial cable, which was being laid down, literally digging up the streets of New York and in other places around the country. New York, they did it because the antennas on the rabbit ears on your TV were very unreliable with all the skyscrapers. So they were laying these cables direct into your homes. And then there was the video camera. And this was a true revolution. The idea of a sort of personal, portable video camera. In that case, it was the Sony Portapak was the first one. And it was a revolution. And you see the way so many artists, so many activists, so many people embrace this new technology. And I think that was really, a media moment where it became possible for anybody to have the means of production.
Listeners, if you remember watching some of New York's public access programming in the 70s and 80s, we want to hear from you. Were you loyal to any of their programs like TV Party or Emerald City or Rocker TV, Squirt TV? Squirt. Call in and share your public access memories. The number is 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. With one of the people that you interviewed, David, at Manhattan Cable Television, he said that he described them as incorrigible kids and that the cable company was like the parents. Could you explain how the kids ran this operation?
Yeah, the kids just took over. They were a lot of them came out of that alternative media center, and others just sort of straggled in to be behind the scenes at the studio. And yeah, they were punk kids. They were very, very engaged in the idea of the whole thing, right? Like they wanted media to be available to all. They were activists very often. But they were also like 20-something in New York in the 70s. And, that was the vibe, right?
Yeah.
It was very underground, very kind of pirate radio feeling as far as we've heard. And then it was sort of under this umbrella of the cable company who looked down. They were literally on the first floor, and the cable company was somewhere up on the 10th floor, I think. And they were like, "What is going on down there? Please don't smoke pot in the building." Right? So there was a kind of uncomfortable relationship between the corporate parents and this sort of freewheeling space that they had to do. They were mandated as part of their charter, their license to run cable in New York. So yeah, it was very much like a generational and also a kind of vibe gap.
How did the Suits view cable television? We know how sort of the alternative kids did, but how did the Suits view it?
Public access specifically. Yeah, I think Charlotte Schiff Jones was who we interviewed in our documentary. She was a vice president at Time Warner, and I think she really believed in it, right? She was and is a free speech advocate, and the whole concept of opening up these channels was very much in line with her ideals, right? I think she also had been very active in the civil rights movement. So she was sort of sitting between the Suits, who really did look at this thing like a runaway experiment that they had no control over. And they were kind of scared of it in a way, I think, right? They did try at various points to sort of shut it down or control it or try to put some guardrails around the content. And whenever they did try that, someone would sue them, usually Al Goldstein, a notorious Times Square, Screw Magazine, Midnight Blue. He's a whole story unto himself. They would fight back, and they would earn the right to be back on the air. So it was this kind of dance of like, well, all right, there are going to be no rules. How do we control it? And that is so much, I think, the world we live in now too. So I think it's very, very parallel.
We're talking about the new documentary Public Access, about the rise of community-based cable TV. My guest is director David Shadrock Smith. Hey, if you want to get in the conversation, if you remember New York's public access programming in the 70s or 80s, we want to hear from you. 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. By the way, your document, it's a really good documentary.
Thank you.
I did want to say that. Let's talk to Karen in Brooklyn Heights. Hi, Karen. Thanks for calling All of It.
Hey, Allison. I, in the late 80s, called in to the Metro astrologer, who was on very late at night. I would say like 11:30, maybe at night. And I wanted to know something about my next relationship. I was between relationships at the time. And she predicted that it would have a domicile quality. And those were the words she used. Lo and behold, I met my husband in the building that we were both living in at the time. So she was quite accurate.
Karen, thank you so much.
Yay, astrologers. I love sitting here with phone calls coming in and thinking about that was another revolutionary part of public access was the call-in show, the live call-in show. Like, when could you talk to your TV? That was not a thing prior to, it's sort of radio space, but it was on TV. And there are just so many great stories of, first of all, like kids like myself and many others I've talked to it was sort of like entertainment to call in these shows and prank them. And but
don't do that. No
pranking. That times have changed. There's a story we tell in the film about GroupTube, which was a great call-in show, one of my favorites. And he put out a call me if you're single and you're looking for a match. And sure enough, Adrian Gruberg, called in, and they were married for the rest of his life. So.
We're getting a lot of
Yay.
calls about Robin Bird.
Yes.
We got, I was a brand new New Yorker when one of my roommates who had grown up in Manhattan introduced me to the one and only Robin Bird. Her show became regular viewing in our apartment. Let's talk to Jane in Carroll Gardens. Hi, Jane. Thanks for calling all of it.
Hey there. Thanks for having me on. Yes, I was or am a native New Yorker, and our sex ed education was definitely all about having one hand on the remote control, watching Robin Bird, and just hoping that our parents didn't walk in the room. And if they did, that's why we were holding the remote. I think Baby Let Me Bang Your Box was sort of the jingle that we all came to school singing for years to come.
Thanks for calling. Let's talk about Robin Bird while we're here.
Sure.
First of all, what was Channel J? She was on Channel J.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
And like your caller, I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn as well. Actually, probably not far away. Interestingly, we didn't have cable, so I would have to watch it at my grandmother's, who was on the Upper West Side, and I would get sent there on Friday nights, and so I would sneak when they were asleep into the library and watch, all the shows. There were tons of the, 1-800 call me sort of escort ads, and Midnight Blue, which we feature a lot in our film, and of course Robin Bird, who I think is probably the best known personality to emerge from public access. And yeah, it was, to go take you back to that time, like you couldn't see that stuff anywhere else. It just was not on your phone, or, maybe it was under someone's mattress, or you had to go to Times Square, right? Which was pretty scary and dangerous. But as a kid, like so many kids, that kind of first shock of stumbling on Channel J, which you asked about. Channel J was an offshoot of Channel C, which was the original public access channel. And it was their effort it was hard to make public access, right? Like you had to be really committed. And that wasn't everybody's cup of tea. And there were some costs involved, right? Either you had to rent the studio or buy videotapes and things like that. So they wanted to try to make it more sustainable for producers. And they opened Channel J, which could be ad supported. So you could sell ads against your show. And that really is where the sex shows went wild, right? And the advertising revenue was substantial. I think people made a lot of money. Robin Bird, Al Goldstein certainly did pretty well. And yeah, it was sort of an uncomfortable fit again, or an evolution of this medium, which was supposed to be open and free. But like so many things, money comes in and, takes over and changes it just a little bit. And the sex shows really figured out this advertising model. They would buy blocks and blocks of TV, and they would just re-air things and run lots of ads. And but for a kid growing up, it was like, okay, this is a really window into another world. And it was definitely an education.
The name of the documentary is Public Access. I'm speaking to its director, David Shadrack Smith. We'll take more of your calls, and we'll have more with David after a quick break. This is All of It. You're listening to All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. My guest is director David Shadrack Smith. He is talking about his new documentary, Public Access, about the rise of community-based cable TV. Let's talk to Norma on line 5, calling in from Manhattan. Hey, Norma, thanks for calling All of It. You're on the air.
Hi. I was a public access producer with QPTV in Queens, and I got involved because as an artist I was really interested in the technology, and they offered to train us free, just, can come in and learn how to use the equipment. And I thought, wow, this is a real opportunity. And so I did. I learned it. I became a producer. I got my certification, and I made a documentary called Round and Round the Mueller Carousel. And it was so interesting to do that because I learned so much about the history of old carousels. This is actually it's a carousel that I believe is still in operation in Forest Park, Queens. And the documentary was about the restoration of the horses.
Norma, thank you so much for calling in. That's kind of interesting that she learned about television by just showing up.
Totally. I mean, that was part of the mission, was to make cameras available, to train people, to teach them about this new technology. And I really think it's beautiful when you think back on it, that, people rushed in, they found it, they wanted to express themselves, make documentaries about things that were of local community interest for their communities. And that sort of birth of accessibility and returning that gift by doing something that meant something to your community, I think was kind of the beauty of it. And we talk a lot about the sex, we talk a lot about the crazy stuff, but there were so many great people, artists, musicians, just, true believers in just community, local community interfacing and communication that had shows. So I really do think it sort of like lived up to that promise along with all the other stuff that happened. So thank you, Norma. I never dared have a show myself.
Early on, MCTV aired footage that photographer Bob Gruen took of his child's birth. Let's listen to him talk a little bit about why he was excited to share this deeply intimate moment on TV. This is from Public Access.
There we go. Watch the baby come. Watch the baby come.
A funny thing about the video machine
Here we go. Here's the head. There we go.
is that it's somehow sensitive to emotions. When things get exciting, the machine gets excited. And as the baby came out, the doctor holds the baby up, and then the video glitched. To me, it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I had no problem putting that on the cable TV, because this was the meaning of life. People were shocked. He was like, oh my God, it's horrible. It's disgusting. All this blood and everything. Some people thought that was, obscene or wrong. And I'm like, why not? That's where you come from.
How do the ideas about what's personal and private versus what's shareable and human factor into what public access was?
Yeah, I love that story so much. And it was one that, we didn't look for it. We were talking to Bob Gruen, interviewing Bob Gruen, mostly about his rock and roll photography and the show that he had on public access that was really just filming bands and putting them on TV. And we had heard rumors that someone had filmed a live birth on public access. Like, that's interesting. That's new territory. And sure enough, it was Bob Gruen, and he generously shared the story and the footage, which he'd kept, thank goodness. And it was one of those moments where you stumble on things when you're doing primary archival research and talking to the producers, and that we hadn't expected. So, yeah, I think, thinking back on your last caller, too, it's hard to imagine now we all have a camera in our pocket and we're all sharing ourselves constantly, or some of us are, some of the more bold of us are. But that was very new. And I think this combination of a technology that felt more intimate and closer to you, and this idea that, you could express yourself, it it did start to turn toward the self in an interesting way, which I think artists embraced. I think lots of people just wanted to see themselves on TV. This was very new that you could see yourself and you had that technology. So I do think it was sort of like that missing link between mainstream TV and the world we live in now, the selfie world we live in now, and people just wanted to express themselves and show their lives.
Gay TV, LGBTQ TV took huge leaps with public access. You had Emerald City was for the gay community. And also it really, when the AIDS crisis hit, people were able to get information. Let's listen to another bit from the documentary Public Access. This is Richard Berkowitz. Let's listen to him talk about how he got involved with public access, and we can talk about it on the other side.
At the dawn of AIDS, Michael Cowan and I wrote a landmark pamphlet, How to Have Sex in an Epidemic. We had to get the word out to the community about safe sex. So I said to myself, call them a letter. I bet this big slut would like to talk about safe sex.
Tonight, Berkowitz and Callan's new book.
Lou was the perfect outlet to try to wake gay men up.
You go into several avenues and areas of sex here. You talk about fist and all the rest of these wonderful things that we all hold near and dear to our heart. Tell us how you would engage in these things differently now to how you did it before.
It's avoiding the exchange. It's
It's
avoiding
really
the
interesting.
exchange of
What did Berkowitz's work demonstrate about the value of public access?
Yeah, to me, this is the heart of the story to me, like the sort of proof of the experiment, why it was so valuable at its time and on from there. So gay TV was a brand new thing. Emerald City was the first gay show in the world that could speak from gays to gays, and that was amazing. And growing out of that, Lou Maletta took it. He was a sort of leather daddy who had an advertising business, and he took it a little further and kind of got more into the porny territory. But he had a vision of what gay television could be, and really wanted to build a kind of network, right? So that's all going along, and then AIDS comes into the world, and he, to his credit, he really recognizes the platform he has to speak directly to the community that needed to hear this information. And Richard Berkowitz was, a young activist, and they'd written a book about a pamphlet that was very important at the time, how to have sex in an epidemic. And it was a great marriage of, like, I have the platform and you have the information, and this is a life and death story. And the power of that medium, I think, really comes out in that story, that you could save lives, and they did.
We got a text here that says, Glenn O'Brien's TV Party. What was special about TV Party?
Oh, man, TV Party. That's one of my favorite shows. So TV Party, and I was a little too young to see it live. So for me, I'm living it through the archives. But that was the underground. That was downtown New York comes into your living room in the best possible way. And it's like that kind of cool New York that we all... if you were lucky enough to live through it, great. Otherwise, it sort of lives in our epic imaginations. But, so Glenn O'Brien was a downtown impresario and a writer. And he teamed up with Chris Stein from Blondie, and they were co-hosts on a show called TV Party. And they had everybody cool came through there. Debbie Harry bouncing on a pogo stick. You have Jean-Michel Basquiat working the Chiron machine in the back room, typing poetry live on TV. It's just like, what was going on? And it was directed by a just recently deceased Amos Poe, who was a no wave director, downtown director. So it was like all the cool kids in one place, and they just like let it fly. It was chaos. Like if you like watching a whole show was hard, but we've chosen some moments for you, so you get the feeling. But it was truly, I think, one of that like perfect archives of the New York that in our imagination.
There's so much more to discuss. You should go see the documentary Public Access about the rise of community-based cable TV. My guest has been director David Shadrach Smith. Thank you so much for making this film.
Oh, it's amazing to be here. I mean, hometown, local radio. Go. It's like this is just great. Thanks for having me.
And that's all of it. I'm Allison Stewart. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you. I'll meet you back here tomorrow.